to ask some things if we want to. And then there are links in the chat box as well to purchase Susana's book if you'd like to, or check out her website. And just a quick introduction. April is National Poetry Month, so again, it's fun to kickstart our author readings with Susana today, reading her poetry.
Okay, she's the author. Froze, so I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. She's the author of several books of poetry, an award-winning author, and she's also a teacher and a professor, a program manager at the New York Institute of Technology. So she's a wonderfully well-rounded author, and I'm really excited to hear about your work today, Susana, and hear you read. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, and as long as the internet is running smoothly, we can keep our videos on. But if things get a little wonky, just click your video off and that will streamline all the broadband for Susana. And I'll be muting everybody while she does her reading. Oh, one last thing. We are recording the reading for Susana, but your faces and your names will not be included. So no worries about that. And we'll just record the reading portion of it.
Thank you, Christy. I'm so thrilled to be the inaugural person for your series. And I just want to show something on the shared screen. Okay, I think you can all see that. That's that I'm going to be reading from today, or the chapbook cover, Body Falling Sunday Morning, from Milk and Cake Press. So this series of poems was inspired by the life and work of Frances Glessner Lee. She was born in the late 1800s in Chicago, and she was born into a wealthy family. And like women of that time, of her social class, she was not sent to university. Her brother went to Harvard. She was educated at home, and educated mostly in what we sometimes have seen called female crafts or female arts, sewing, embroidery, that kind of thing. But her brother went to medical school, and she met a friend of her brother's, also a medical student, who got her, it was not a romantic relationship, it was a friendship, but he got her interested in, well, in corpses and in crime. And she later married, very unhappy in the marriage because there was really nothing for her to do. She was kind of bored. And so she started to use these female, quote unquote, female crafts to construct what was very common in those years. It was very common for women to construct doll houses. She used her skills in those areas to make doll houses, the difference being that her doll houses had crime scenes and dead bodies in them. Eventually, these were used as training tools, and she did get to Harvard as an instructor. Actually, she taught forensics to the police. And most of these models, she made 20 altogether. One is lost. We don't know what it looked like, but 18 of them are still owned by Harvard, and they currently reside in the Maryland Medical Examiner's Office, and they're still used as training tools. One of them is in the New Hampshire Forestry Service. So the chapbook, it has ekphrastic poems, that is poems based on the art, these dollhouse models, these dioramas, some prose poems about her life, some images of the dioramas, and also at the end I will share a cocktail recipe with you, which is contained therein too. There was a cocktail in her honor. So let me return to me and for a moment, and let me show you something else on screen now that you might be interested in. This is, as soon as I get it up there.
Hello.
Okay, well, I'm having
I'll have to
trouble
call
getting
back,
it up there.
Patricia, because I'm in the middle of something. Can I do that?
Okay. Honey,
Everybody go on mute unless you're our speaker,
let
please.
me try to do this again. Okay, sharing is, here we go. Okay, this is a photograph, one of the few that exist, of Frances Glessner Lee doing her, you can see she's making a little model of the crime scene. This is the desk that she worked at. She created these models in the 40s and in the 50s, so she was already middle-aged at the time that she found her life's work. So let me show you an example of one of the models, and then I will read a poem based on that model. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to read one of the prose poems, which will tell you a little more about her life. None of the prose poems have titles. Examine the tableau. She's stuck in a time when a lady didn't go to school. Glessner Lee is that lady. Instead of making lace, she makes miniature crime scene models, doll houses full of bloodstains, grime, 5 to 6 inch corpses, female mostly, stuffed, dressed, and painted. Everything works: window shades, mouse traps, hinges on doors, puzzles impossible to solve. One needs autopsies and lab tests. Once a misfit, she teaches policemen at Harvard, has her students guess: murder, suicide, accident. There's family money from tractors. The class feasts on forensics, then she takes them for prime rib at the Ritz. Let me show you an example of one of the models. Okay, this isn't screen share. I keep getting screen share is paused, which is driving me. Okay, let's try again. No, here we go. Okay, this is, you can all see this, right? Just let me know. Okay, this is 3-bedroom dwelling, her title, and this is the bedroom of 3-bedroom dwelling. And so you can see what she's created, the crime scene. And the poem of mine, based on this crime scene, is called No Sign of Activity. Every day, the shoe factory, and then one day, inevitably, the shotgun. Blood blooms more robust than the flowers stenciled on the yellow, blue, and white kitchen linoleum. Blood stains redder than the Libby's tomato juice next to the Heinz home-style soup. A box of bullets sits on a kitchen shelf. That morning, the weather was so clear. She thought she was a good wife, set the table for breakfast the night before, dusted around the easy chair where he usually reads the newspaper. This is a gendered household, blue and pink, blue and pink. In bed, blood pooled beneath her. She wears a pink nightgown under a pink blanket. On the floor next to her is the husband, face down, in blue pajamas, on a blue comforter. Where is the baby? Oh God, where is the baby girl? The baby's also lifeless. Spatter trellises the striped wallpaper, a cartridge casing, and in this house of 3 rooms, so many overturned chairs. Back. Let me give you an example of another one. Share the screen again. Okay. So okay, I don't, here we go. Okay, so this is another one of the dioramas. She titled it Attic. And as you can see, there's someone hanging from the rafters. My poem is titled Laundry Line. In the attic, love letters scatter like dead leaves beneath the woman's dangling feet. It's Christmas Eve. Is this what happens when you go to gray? Wrapped in her shawl, she's roped to a rafter with white laundry line, spinning wheel, junked lamp, phonograph, childhood doll in white lace, as if, like the abandoned things, she quietly shuffled away. Downstairs, she may have decided for once not to wash up, to leave a dirty cluster of dishes. The snow is muddled on the outside path. The door is open. Looking closely, her face is scuffed. There's another prose poem based on her life. Frequenting autopsies to verify the accuracy of her models, Glessner Lee notes the correct amount of bloating among those in her down at heel homes and rooms, victims led astray by desire and vice, the inherent vice of materials, degradation over time. Nail polish depicting blood turns purple. She stains dolls, newspapers stuffed into cracks, and crushed cigarettes, knits stockings with needles the size of straight pins. 3 crime scenes a year, each as costly as a basic house, not like her house, genteel, full of antiques, or the one in Santa Barbara to which she sent after her divorce. 8 years is enough to wallow in disgrace. She feels freed instead. Obsessed, she writes, "This has been a lonely and rather terrifying life I have lived." Here's another poem based on a model without the model. End of the affair. How we deceive the one we love, log cabin at the hideaway, some illicit kisses, moss in crevices, tar paper roof. A married insurance salesman, face down, shot at close range, his own weapon, was taking another cigarette from the pack, like he took her, the lover, one of many. No. There's always an argument. The detective dismisses her claim of innocence, believes if he had ended the affair in a restaurant, this wouldn't have happened. It takes 3 days to locate the bullet in the rafters. He bent over and shot himself, his mistress insists, knocked his hat clear off. How the affair ends. No matter that the gun's not under him and her fingerprints are on the pistol. Let me show you another diorama. Okay, and you can see here where the body is. This is called Red Bedroom. And my poem is Body in the Closet. Her neck is slashed. She's sprawled on the closet floor, knife at hand. Is this what she worked so hard for on her back and knees? Female sexuality begets violence. The hooker always gets it in the end. The landlord finds her body, calls the police. They call on her last client, a man who went to her red wallpapered room. Cigarettes smoked, whiskeys poured. She was dolled up in red lipstick and nail polish, all her gold bangles. Her hot date claims she grabbed a jackknife he used to open a package and dashed into the closet. It's all he knows. The John scurried off after he opened the closet door. He's got nothing to add about an argument, nothing about the hurry at the scene, the suitcase, clothes, red coat, all the frantically opened dresser drawers. This one you see up right now is the inspiration for the title, Body Falling Sunday Morning, which is a line in the poem I'm about to read. I'm just moving the image up a little so you could see the body in the very bottom of the, oops. Sorry, at the very bottom of the diorama. So that is called Two-Story Porch, the model, and the poem is called Small Caliber. Oops, sorry. I'm getting to see all my photographs there. Small caliber. Where are you going with a 22 in your hand, showing off your Second Amendment, shooting off your mouth, shooting her struck dumb in the chest, struck dumb boy. He struck her, shooting upward from the street, anonymous shot, she on a chair, still in her apron and hairnet, hanging the weekly wash on the two-story porch. Body falling, Sunday morning, husband drunk and cantankerous. He could have done it. Loose with his hands, he too owns a 22 and a swagger. So I have more to read, but I thought maybe pause for a bit. What do you think, Christy? And take any questions?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I can, if you'd like to ask a question, just again, open up the chat box. If you have trouble finding it, go ahead and wave and I'll try to help you out here. But it looks like, Patricia, you've got a question?
What got you into this subject?
Yeah, how did you get into this subject matter? What brought you to be interested in this lady that you wrote about, her work?
There was a show of her dioramas in DC a couple of years ago. And before that, I had not heard of her. But the artwork interested me and the history interested me. I often write about history and I also write about art, and the conjunction of that with this very lonely, unhappy female figure who took the oppressive aspects of her life and turned them into something really marvelous and lasting appealed to me. So I see Sarah Maron has her hand raised. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know what to do with how to.
So Sarah, it looks like you're unmuted if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Sarah?
Oh, I just had to unmute on my phone too. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got
Hi.
two technologies working here, so I realized I had to unmute my phone too.
Sarah and I are
Susana.
pressmates on a different press, Broadstone Books, or almost to be pressmates.
Yes, I can't
Sorry.
wait to read your new Broadstone work. And I think we met once before in Bryant Park. That was our in-person meeting. I know. Can you hear me? I'm sorry if my internet connection is. Let me know if I'm spotty. I saw this show at the Renwick, so when you pulled up her dioramas, I got really excited, and I was wondering if you, when you wrote these poems, did you read the story of how of the murder first, or did you just look at the diorama and describe it yourself via the poem? But what was your process to compose?
Looking at the dioramas, I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything because some of it was breaking up, but I got some of it. Looking at the dioramas made me curious about her life, about which there isn't all that much, other than what I basically already told you. That's pretty much what's there. It's a kind of vanishing. but the little that there is there because of the dioramas, which to me are a form of art. So yeah, without the dioramas, I wouldn't know about her. Without the dioramas and looking at them, I wouldn't have been curious about her.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a question from Catherine.
Okay, why did she make the dioramas so small instead of full size? Well, many of them were rooms. Some of them were more than one room, and some of them also had outside spaces. So to make that life size, it would have been kind of unwieldy, I think. It would mean putting, she would have 20 life-size rooms within her room or her house. Yeah, by the way, everything she does in the dioramas is proportional. So the figures and their relationship to the bed and everything in the room is scaled down, but it's to scale. Anyone else? So
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can, yes.
I'm just fascinated with this, but I was thinking that I had gone, like the day before the colleges closed down, I had gone to this Shakespeare talk, and there was a woman talking about doll houses and what women put in houses. And I got to thinking about what you were showing us here, and it's almost like, I think, I'm not positive about this, but what is put into the house because it's their house is what they can't act on and can't see and make happen. So it's a fantasy house, and they own that dollhouse. Hence, even the violence that your artist puts in. But they use the dollhouse as a real mode of expression. Does that make any connection to what you're thinking about?
Yes, it does. And it brings up a question that no one asked, but which I thought someone would ask, which is, to what extent did she base these models on real life murders or accidents, because they weren't all murders, they were potential crime scenes. And one of the things she was interested in teaching is how to make a differentiation.
But it could also be her imagination, right? I mean,
she absolutely used her imagination, but she also often used real events, or sometimes combined several events into a different event.
Right.
So,
like we make poems.
Yes, exactly the way we make poems. Let me give you an example of one in which it's very explicit, at least in my poem, that she has done this. And this is called Bath. Blame it on her epilepsy. Dead woman sprawled in a bathtub, water pouring over her face. No signs of violence in the small, dark bathroom. Here's the historical part. So like the brides in the Bath murders, George Joseph Smith in England had 7 bigamous marriages between 1908 and 1914. Drowned some of his wives in the tub by grabbing their legs and pulling them up, killed them to inherit their fortunes. 1 woman, 2, 3. Thanks to forensics, he was tried and hanged. Blame it on the empty gin bottle knocked over on the bathroom rug. She drank her gin neat. Sunday night. Men were there. So often the killer is someone you know, one you thought, a friend. A lot of drinking. Men, none of them sweet when drinking, but just one dirty glass. So the speculation for using this as a teaching tool would be, well, was she drunk and did she drown in the bathtub? Did she have an epileptic seizure and drown in the bathtub? Or was she killed by one of the, or more of the men who were drinking?
Right.
At her house. So.
God.
Okay, we can use, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see something called reactions, and we can use that because I'm going to ask you a question for a moment, and that's how many of you remember and watched the TV program CSI? Not CSI New York, not CSI Miami, the original CSI. If you look at reactions, you can do a thumbs up, and that's would be a yes, I think. Okay, so I see. Let's see. Do I see? Okay. Well, I see a few. What is this? This is not an audience of heavy TV watchers. Okay. Well, anyway, let me read this prose poem which references CSI. And they also were inspired by, oh, hi. They also were inspired by Glessner Lee.
I posted a follow-on question there in the chat room.
Did I come across her notes, police or news records of these events? No. No, I don't know that if she had any notes, there were, well, very little notes. Actually, there are a few of her notes in a book, in an art book of the images, but not very much. And can you relate the subject matter to current virus death toll? No, I don't know how to do that. So it seems to be a whole other thing. And TV, my foot, YouTube for me. Okay, well, for those of you who did remember CSI, CSI was also inspired by Frances Glessner Lee. In its 7th season premiere, inspired by Glessner Lee's works, the TV show CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, introduces a character, the miniature serial killer. Natalie Davis, the murderer, leaves a scale model of the crime scene at each kill site or sends it to someone investigating the case. She uses the victim's blood when she needs to represent blood, not the nail polish Glessner Lee used. Every construction in the TV show contains a picture of a bloodied doll. Her first victim was her 4-year-old sister, whom she pushed out of a treehouse. It's the only one of her homicides for which she doesn't create a miniature. I'm now going to read what is probably the only poem I have ever written from the point of view of a dog, in spite of being a person who has pretty much always had dogs in my adult life. I have not generally thought to write poems from their point of view, but this one is from the point of view of a dog, and it's called The Smell of Smoke. I love the nighttime smoke, fuel can in the doorway, the escape through the door only a dog could make. I made my escape. Love the cans of evaporated pet milk left on the table, bread and soup. Love the charred surfaces of the carefully built cabin. Love the cabin. Fire in the collapsed bed and bedroom wall, headboard of the bed, intense burn of the uncle who remained in bed, who kicked me repeatedly. Love the necessity of dental records, soot in his trachea. Love the arson. They search for accelerants on the nephew's clothes and hands. Love the young nephew, my master, lurking outside, fully clothed, the argument they had that night, the sinner, if not the sin. Here's another one, household chores. Doll kitchen with open gas jets a la Sylvia Plath. To make the room airtight, Glessner Lee locks the doors, seals the cracks with old newspaper. The dead woman has finished baking the cake. left it cooling in its pan, left the peeled potatoes by the sink. Refrigerator door is open, table and cloth askew. Did the husband set the scene, use the window to escape? Lying on the floor, she has that rosy carbon monoxide poisoning hue.
Susanna, there's a question for you in the chat.
Me.
Okay, thanks. There is so much darkness and death in her life. How are your feelings related to this poetry? They are compassion and astonishment, like life, even when death is the subject of life. I have a lot of sympathy for her, and I know it's somewhat easy to say, well, she was, you know, financially comfortable, perhaps spoiled, and you know, there's so much else to feel. There's so many other people we can feel sympathy for, and often do. But I wanted to, I guess I felt compelled to write about her because of that darkness and sadness and the way she used it. I think if she hadn't used it for something like these crime scene dioramas, she might not have been as interesting to me. She would have been another woman unhappy with her situation. As I think, you know, particularly in the mid-century, many women were. I think because she used those feelings and did this thing that you know, that I connected to her. Hi.
It feels. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I want to say that is very. It's a good trip to listen and this poetry, because it's so powerful, like knowing that a woman in that time had the courage to do this, and how really life and death can be on the same dish, you know, on the same daily life, and yeah.
In another time, she probably would have been a medical student and become a doctor, and not necessarily one that you know, deals only with bodies after they are dead. But given her circumstances, this is what she had available to use. So
very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So okay. I'll read the last one in the book, which is called Wallpaper with Fish. And this is the only one of the poems based on her models where I actually bring her into the poem as well. Glusner Lee wants you to think about the stool, changing a light bulb, slippage, slippers neatly arranged on the rug. You think the deceased widow adrift in her wallpaper, ocean, fish, water reeds, reef, doily on the skirted vanity, her double lies on the floor in the mirror, behind the door, loaded, still in her robe. You think discharge, it flows from her nose and mouth. You think odor, closed window, pink, everything is pink. Strands of cotton on top of the door as if she hanged herself. You don't know what to think. Which is the way most of the models are constructed. You don't know what to think. You have to look for clues. You have to make assumptions. You have to look at the very little tiny details, which is why they're still so useful as training tools. So let me, since we have time, I'll show you another. The dioramas. They're in black and white. They're originally, I mean, the dioramas are not black and white, and but the photos in the book are black and white. So that's why I'm showing them in black and white. And here you see a woman at the bottom of the stairs. This is a detail of her diorama called Living Room. And this is the poem, The Quiet Couple. He called the doctor instead of the police. Upholstered chair, Philco radio in the living room, Newsweek, Lucky Strikes, butts scattered on the side table, that small dishevelment. Someone has been reading Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Who done it with a poisoned thorn? The house in the painting above the fireplace preens with peacefulness. It's Glessner Lee's cottage on the Rocks estate. Birch in the hearth and birch lining the road in the painting, lush with green. A quiet evening at home, the husband swears, but where he tells a detective he found her, his wife lies face down on the stairs. I'll read one more. The title of this diorama is Parsonage Parlor, and the poem is called Bite Marks. A pervert, one she knows, has bitten up her torso and legs, left her on the floor of the parsonage where she's lain for days. Set on a chair, ground beef she'd gone to get. The room has been shut, furniture covered, mail piled up, rector on vacation. Who's going to inform the mother? The girl must have stopped to play the parlor piano. She's cut, misloved, teenager in red ballet shoes, knife in gut. So I hope I haven't been breaking up too much, because every so often flashes on my screen, your internet is unstable. There's probably nothing stable about any of this, but that's what it says. Oh, another comment. Okay, from Lynn McGee. Are you all able to see the chat? Do you all have the chat up? She says, I admire the craft of these poems. I see three incredibly balanced narrative elements: factual recounting, describing the scene; fictionalizing, from Body in the Closet, or the frantically open dresser drawers, which is correct because there'd be no way to know the speed of that. And the wise summaries, also very lightly distributed into the mix. Female sexuality begets violence, which, yes, of course, is the omniscient narrator, me, adding a comment. And yes, thank you, she says there.
Susanna, also I want to say the recounting of the, describing it factually is really so well done. I mean, like in the poem you just read, we're at the chair with the ground, what was it, ground beef? Or I'm actually looking at the poems while you're reading them. Anyway, ground beef, yeah. Like, there were a lot of details. There are a lot of details in that room, and they're so well selected, I think. The ones that are the most poignant, they kind of carry the emotional, weight of the poems a lot.
Thank you. Of course, Frances Glessner Lee helped me because she put a lot of detail into her dioramas, so there was a lot to work with there, certainly. And to sometimes make up. The poem, for example, from the point of view of the dog, there's no dog in the diorama. I put the dog in the diorama. So the poems are a combination of what's there and what I decided to put there because I thought it worked for the poem. So I understand that because we're mostly shut in, that the rate of alcohol consumption has been increasing. And so, of course, I don't know if it's increasing with each of you personally, but I did want to share with you the cocktail recipe that is in the book and that was created in her honor by a TV station. So if you if you don't have the book and you have it,
What page is it? Sorry. What page?
24. It's on page 24 if you have the book, and if you don't, and you want to get a paper, if you want to get a, and you like cocktails, you might want to get a pen and paper and write down this recipe. It's a variation on the Bloody Mary, which of course is what cocktail would be used to honor her, but it's not quite a Bloody Mary, and it's called the Bloody Francis, and it was created to honor her by WTTW, a station in Chicago. So what you need to create a Bloody Francis is 4 ounces of tomato passata. You can use tomato juice because that's what most people have. 2 ounces of mezcal, 1 ounce of lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of grated horseradish, 1.2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1 teaspoon of habanero sauce, and to taste, pepper, celery salt, and you can garnish it with things like olives and pickled tomatoes. So, you know, that sounds pretty much like a Bloody Mary with a little bit of variation, but what WTTW Chicago added to the cocktail recipe was this instruction: serve it like justice, ice cold.
Nice. Well, Susana, I've really enjoyed hearing you read these poems and looking at the dioramas, and it's so interesting because she's very much a storyteller, just in the art of recreating the scene. And I wonder if that's, part of what is so appealing about her, because we're all storytellers and we love a story, whether we write them or read them or just share them with our families. And so when you can see that encapsulated in this small scene, it's just, it's very fascinating.
Yes, every one of the, 19 that I've seen, because one is missing and I don't know what it looks like, but every one of the 19 that I have seen contains multiple stories, actually, because it's, for many of them, especially the ones that are still being used, it's not quite clear what has happened. And what has happened is, in a way, secret, because they're still being used. And so you don't want to give away everything, because then the students will know where to look to see what the answer is, and that's not what the goal is. So.
Very nice. Well, I don't know if anyone has any more questions. We still have a little bit of time, or I did put the links back up again at the end of the chat here so that you could check out the book at Milk and Cake Press, and check out their other books as well. And then Susana's website link is on there so that you can look at her other works and check out her other books that she's written. So I do want to say thanks so much for your patience with this new format. I try to make it as in real life as possible, as if we're all sitting in a bookstore together, and that's always harder with technology. And so thank you for your patience. If you had trouble hearing anything or seeing anything, you can certainly send me an email and let me know, and so we can keep improving them. But I'm so grateful that, Susana, you were here to introduce us to National Poetry Month and be the first one on scene to do this new format of author readings. It's been lovely getting to know you and your work.
And I want to thank the people who showed up. And I just noticed someone has logged in from the United Arab Emirates, and that's wild because I think the time there. Well, I don't know what time it is there. Midnight, maybe midnight. I'm not sure. I don't know if she's still on, but I'm so glad. It's such a neat way to do a reading that has more than just the local people in it, that there are people from in Rockland, Maryland. And so it's not just New York where I'm located, or it's just kind of nice. So thank you.
Thank you. I also want to say I enjoy it very much because it allowed to have a full immersion in your voice and also the book and the images. It was a good experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I noticed Cindy Bierfui has her hand raised. Can you unmute her?
Yes. There you go, Cindy.
Hi.
I don't know if she knows she's.
Yeah, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
and see
good.
you
Hi.
too.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi, everyone. Hi, Indran, who I haven't seen in a long
Yeah.
time. As a teacher, I just see this book as such a great device because as ekphrastic poetry is, I mean, it's really a conversation between the observer and the artist, and everyone brings their own experiences and what they're, I mean, the fact that you saw the chop beat there, everyone is going to bring their own experiences. And I was wondering if you have ever done something where you have students look at these pictures and write their own poems and start comparing what they've seen and what they've observed and how they relate to the pictures themselves as opposed to others, and just to kind of open up the conversation about how people see things differently and what's important to them.
I don't teach writing, so no,
Yeah.
but I did think of doing it today, but I wasn't sure who would be here and who would, want to do that. So, and then so I didn't, if there had been more time, I thought about doing that with one of the images, but normally
Just throwing it out there.
It's not what I teach. So.
Thank you.
One good thing that could come out of this is this whole business is in the future, even when we have an in-person reading, if it's also broadcast, it would just be wonderful. I mean, I can't go to a reading of Susanna's when she's in New York and I'm where I live, but I'd really like to attend anyway. And I don't mind buying books online instead of in person, even if the impulse buying thing isn't quite as strong. And anyway, it's one positive that I hope comes out of this whole mess. Thanks so much, Susanna.
Oh, you're welcome, and thanks for coming.
I've been a fan of this series for a long time, and so it was great to hear, what you did with these things that I've only experienced visually. And if people want to see the exhibit that was in Washington, just Google Glessner at the Renwick, which is where it was, and then you can also see all these in color because the colors are wonderful. And thank you very much, Susanna.
Yes. How did you know about her?
I don't remember. My aunt was a big fan of hers. My aunt made dollhouses and was familiar with her work. And probably my aunt introduced me to her models. And the life is fascinating, and I've always had a little taste for the macabre. I read a lot of Poe when I was young, and so this just was right up my alley. Yeah, thank you.
One of the ideas that this, whoops.
You're on.
Am I on, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. One of the ideas that this gives me, as a platform is just more, like I think someone was saying, more ekphrastic poetry. People can show the painting that inspired the poem. They can show the place. They can show, it's just something we haven't been able to share so much when we present our work. So just saying that.
By the way, her father, she inherited, she was an heiress of harvester fortune, and her father collected furniture.
Yes, yes.
And so was in the family already.
Well, I don't know if I would call her a collector so much.
No, but she collected crime scenes. I don't know. No,
But
I wouldn't call her a collector.
But if you are a collector, you do have often a certain obsessional nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, which she clearly did.
Yes. Sure.
Oh, so Sarah posted a link. Thank you for that. Yeah, where you can see all of them and see them in color if you on the chat.
Oh, great.
All right. Well, if there is anything else, I don't want to close anything too early. We still have a few minutes. I really enjoyed this discussion too after. It's so nice to talk more about Frances Glessner Lee and how it inspires your work, and just again the fascination with her as a person and an artist and a storyteller, and you know how that translates into other professions. And it's just interesting to me how creativity is so important in anything really. And so I think especially during this time when things are uncertain and we're all kind of stuck at home, it's easy to think about, well, what's the point of writing? What's the point of creating? What's the point of, you know, imagining certain things? And this is the point, you know, it still applies. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I mean, she was not going through a pandemic, and was not stuck in her home in exactly this way. So I don't want to say that they're equivalent, but there's a sense in which she was also confined to her home as a daughter, and also later as a wife with very little outlet. And yet created these things.
Well, thank you. Thank you again, everyone. Please be sure and check out Susana's book. You can go to Milk and Cake Press. That's the small press where her book is published. And check out her website as well. We have more readings coming up if you go to hiddentimberbooks.com. We have one tomorrow with another poet, Erica Dreyfus. And that's our weekend of poetry. And then we have several coming up. So check them out. They're all free. And I'd love to have you online again. And if you've got any suggestions of authors who you would love to see and hear, read online, you can always send me an email. I'd be happy to try and make that happen. And thanks so much again, Susana, for being willing to join us.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who came.
Yay, thank you so much.
Bye, Susana. Bye, Christine.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.